final match of the day, and it's going to be tom60229 versus Staz. Both these players are 1-0 this weekend. Tom taking a win over Chonsu's Druid that we saw earlier, and then Frosty losing to Staz as well. So, you know, this is a big one for both these players, going for that dream 2-0 sweep this weekend. Let's check out Tom's mage deck, because this is going to be a mirror match. So, you know, as we look at this deck now, we can check out what exactly he has available in this primary and how it actually fares versus mage. I think Tom's actually in a good spot.
Yeah, we see a few cards in here against aggro, Rabble Bouncer, but no Vex scores in the main list, 2 Astromancers, which help a lot more against Warrior than Mage, but it's still a tool that can be used in the mirror for sure. Banana Buffoon just for consistent hand size, Double Nova, which we've seen a lot more in Mages trying to tech for the mirror as well.
Yeah, I feel like this is a very refined list, at least for a specific matchup, and that for me, it's very much just, I think with this list, Tom should play aggressive. He should just be throwing stuff down every single turn. Doesn't have to get too fancy with the massive spell turns, because he has like Rabble Bouncer that's going to get reduced a little bit to be played early, Astromancer just to slam, Giants just to slam, Banana Buffoons down as well. I like if he just plays this quite aggressively, whereas you know, some of the lists are having those Vex Crows, having some of those Snap Freezes, which are good for the mirror, but also very reactive.
Right.
You still end up having to spend, what, 3 mana to kill something, which is a large portion of even late game turns, never mind early game turns. So yeah, I think I want to see Tom just play as fast and as sort of aggressive as possible with this deck. He does still have the opportunity, of course, Mana Cyclone, that Sorcerer's Apprentice. The usual grouping of minions and spells are in there to go crazy with the extra spells, but I do want him to see play a little bit aggro here. And let's check out Staz's mage, as this isn't quite as sort of close in terms of, you know, 2-offs in the deck. There is still the ooze in there, just the same as Tom has, but most importantly, there's like a 1 Frost Nova, 1 Vex Crow, 1 Astromancer, along with that 1 Rabble Bouncer. So slightly less consistent overall, and I feel like the Vex Crow, although not a bad card in a lot of matchups, doesn't really do too much in this one specifically.
It can be a bit dicey. It lets you go a little wide, and if your opponent doesn't have Rabble Bouncers, it can help, but most mages are just running 2 Sea Giants in their main list.
Right.
So it can kind of hurt you in that sense if you enable your opponent to get down a Sea Giant faster before you can. And I think one of the main takeaways here is not having a second Nova in the main list when you're expecting a lot of mages can be a little dicey. We've seen Frost Nova is one of the ways mage players have been able to just completely turn around games, even just by sticking 1 Giant, Frost Novaing, and then chaining from that lets you win games, whereas we see Tom having 2 Frost Novas. That might help him a lot. If we get through most of the deck, the second extra freeze will help a lot.
Yeah, we saw some really solid play from Tom yesterday. I think, I know Sol was mentioning just how like cool, calm and collected Tom looked in terms of his match yesterday, where he was just doing a lot of setup, playing many turns ahead basically, and some really good planning, which is something that is very valuable with a deck like this when things can go a little bit wild, and when you have an opportunity to either make a good play now, or if you hold off, it might become a great play, or maybe even game-winning play, then having that knowledge and experience to be able to say, you know what, I'll hold off for 1 more turn, and this play could then be amazing. It's going to be very valuable to Tom. With Staz, we did speak to him the other day, and he actually said he moved from the Dragon list, the Dragon Mage list that he had in week 1 to this one, because he just thinks it's just better. Maybe didn't have time to practice enough for week 1 for that Cyclone list, but for now, yep, he thinks this is just better, and already we're going to get on with this mirror match to finish up the day and finish up week number 2. tom60229 versus Staz Mage Mirrors. Let's go.
Alright, Staz is on the coin. He does have the option to keep Intellect or Banana Buffoon, or both. I'd be surprised if he kept Mirror Image, not something you really want in the mirror, at least early on. Can help you delay your opponent hitting you in the face with an 8-8, but early on you definitely don't want that.
It's not something you want in the mirror, but it's something that's always there.
Good one.
Wow. Shot me down with that. The way you sounded saying that, I don't think that was honest. But fine. Let's talk about the game then, and not my bad jokes or puns.
Evocation by itself isn't really that great to keep either. If you already have like Arcane Intellect, Mountain Giant, and Evocation ongoing, great. That sets up for the turn 4 trifecta. But without having those other 2 cards, I think you just want to toss back, find one of them.
Okay, so Vex Crow being pulled for Staz there. So again, like I said,
I
don't like it in the matchup. overall, but Tom just going for the Sorcerer's Apprentice, just saying, okay, well, let's go. If he can play the Banana Buffoon, then that means a +2/+2 on the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Staz has to make the call now. Does he want to use double Ray of Frost when he has a Mana Cyclone in hand? Like, ugh. But if he doesn't...
I think from Staz's perspective, he should, because in the mirror like this, when one player goes in early with resources, you have to kind of answer in kind. If you don't, it gives the player going for tempo the option to try and like just kill you, kind of be a more aggressive matchup. Whereas if Staz holds this, the punish obviously is Banana Buffoon, buff the Apprentice, and then go in on that.
He's going to remove... He did have a potential game of Chicken he could have played, and played his Swamp Ooze.
Yep.
Because that means even if the Banana Buffoon comes down with the buffs, you can Ooze and then ping.
True, but at that point, why not? I think Staz wanted the Arcane Intellect or Buffoon on 3 for hand size, so I think you don't want to commit to a ping on turn 3. I think you just want to say, all right, let's get this Sorcerer's Apprentice off the board, and then we'll figure the rest out.
It's going to mean that already Tom is basically just defining himself as the aggressor at this moment in time in the matchup.
Yep.
Staz is always one turn behind now that he had to deal with the Sorcerer's Apprentice first.
That's a good pickup. This lets Tom be in line with his aggressive game plan and just cycle his bananas. From Staz, with the Banana Buffoon play, normally you see players Arcane Intellect when they have an option, but since Staz has the Vex Throw, the Banana Buffoon helps just set up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom's being the aggressor here and putting on, causing issues for Staz, but Staz does have the coin, which in this matchup, I would say second only to Rogue in the power level of the coin.
Yep, it's very valuable.
Class.
Kind of a tough situation from Staz here.
I think you just go.
Oh, I don't know if you do. I think you might want to wait one extra turn to be able to go Vex Throw, Coin, Banana. Vex Throw, Coin, Banana just dies on board to the other Banana Buffoon. And then the Cyclone is likely able to clear up one of the other 2 drops.
Yeah, but you stay ahead, right? You end up with +1 minion on board.
True. I think you can squeeze a bit more out of it.
I'm just
maybe you should just go for it.
Yeah. I'm worried about, for example, even... the Mage Mirrors can go weird ways, basically, and that's all down to how a player chooses to approach the matchup. But for example, what if there's, even a Conjurer's Calling on this Banana Buffoon after it's attacked or something, suddenly the board could be too wide to do anything about, and then you just die.
True.
So I think Staz at least feels he has to do this, because otherwise the game might run away with him.
I like Staz buffing the Swordsmith over the Vex Throw, because the Vex Throw was going to die anyways to the Banana Buffoon. This way, buffing the Swordsmith means that you can VT with it.
Good old VT.
And it sticks around for future threats.
Might just draw out a ping this turn, though, from Tom. You can kill both.
Perhaps. I think Arcane Intellect's going to come down for sure. I think the ping's fine, too. Clean up a bit of the board.
Get rid of the threats.
Yep. Cheaty Ankle Biter, not that scary, just a 2-1. Staz is already at 30, so the life still doesn't matter too much.
And also as well, in the mirror, life doesn't matter too much because you take hits that are so hard
8,
anyway
10,
that like, the players normally have control of the board, and you either have a freeze for your opponent or you don't. That's often how the matchup can go if it's even, and if it's not even, well, that just happens quicker.
Yeah.
So
sometimes one player can be aggressive, and we saw Tom take that route this game, where he just threw some stuff on the board and said, all right, if this sticks, I can take off 3, 5, 10 damage. It can add up. And then later on, he might only need 1 or 2 swings of a giant to get through.
Right. But I think when both players are at 30, it's
different story.
Unimportant for now.
Not a whole lot going on for Staz here. Play the Arcane Intellect, deciding if he wants to ping or develop something else. I think developing the use is fine. You don't have a giant you're building up towards. So if you can throw some stuff down to be able to contest anything that Tom would develop next turn, it's pretty good.
And outside, I guess not, because he can ping, but the Ooze is the highest attack that he can put on board as well, just to help kill off anything. He can kill a Mountain Giant, but because this ping comes down, he's going to fall a little bit short.
Even with Ziliax Banana,
yeah, exactly. It's just a tiny bit short.
Yeah.
Must be very frustrating. Now though, can he? Oh, he can't because he's not got sorcerers, right?
Khadgar Image puts 5 things on board for 3 mana. Yeah, the Sea Giant is playable this turn.
Yeah, it does fit, doesn't it?
The Sea Giant is exactly
For some reason, I thought you had to play double image, and you don't, because that's why you play Khadgar.
Like,
yeah, I was like, huh,
you
this
could
is too
also
much
go
mana.
double image Sea Giant, 2 mana for 4, and then you have 4 mana left over for the Sea Giant. It works both ways. It's a matter of whether or not you want to use Khadgar here, or 2 images.
I think the spell keep with your hand is worth more than the Khadgar
because of
keep.
the Mana Cyclone. Yeah, I like that. And it just sets up for if you happen to find a Conjurer's Calling, which you can also discover off of Magic Trick next turn if the Khadgar sticks around, and if the Sea Giant sticks around, which likely will. Tom is not running anything like a Snap Freeze or Polymorph in the main list.
It is kind of hard for Mage, especially through mirror images, to get to a Khadgar, because you can't really deal 2 that consistently, right? In most lists. Yeah, Staz has chosen to keep hold of the Khadgar now and use the other mirror image, so let's see how that pans out for him in the future. He's just maybe thinking for the long term here.
Tom does have a 1 mana Rabble Bouncer available. All it would do is really tank a Sea Giant hit, but it would prevent Staz from killing off Tom's Mountain Giant.
Catch Nova too. Oh wow. Oh, you want mirror images? Okay.
Yeah, this is cool.
I've got 2 giants and you've got 1.
Well, Staz doesn't have any random spells in hand, so Tom knows it's going to be very, very difficult to get past these mirror images. Gotta get through it the old-fashioned way.
My question, where's the Mossy Horror tech?
Good question.
He's sick right now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting in the mirror for sure. Well, these mirror images are not getting punched down. With a Banana Buffoon draw, you could Banana Buffoon, play 4 bananas, kill off 2 images with your own images, but it doesn't feel like the most powerful turn. You could Ziliax as well. The ping doesn't do a whole lot. You could ping the Khadgar this turn to be able to ping it again the turn after, but I think Staz might want to Magic Trick and find a Conch Calling to try and get something better out on the field just to, instead of the Sea Giant.
Also, a banana on the Sea Giant wouldn't be the end of the world either, because it forces trade plus ping. Like, one of the sickest turns you can do is if your Giant's going into their Giant, you have like banana to trade, then Conjurers, and it's just like, oh, it's so nuts, because the whole point of the Giant versus Giant is that it's even and you can't trade and Conjurers, so the bananas are really valuable, and that's why we start to see Banana Buffoon was sort of messed around with as a one-of in the list, and now it's just standard. Now people are just running 2.
Looks like Staz might be going for the banana game plan.
He's going to buff his own images to take out more images.
Hey.
Could kill 2 taunts if he wants to.
I don't know about this.
Ugh.
I feel like I would have liked Staz to go for the Magic Trick here. I understand he could be saving up for Cyclone turn, but you need to be doing something. You're behind on board right now.
I honestly wouldn't have minded the... I mean,
even the banana,
he uses up the Cyclone, but he has enough spells, right? Without a Sorcerer's Apprentice, he can't go that deep with the Cyclone anyway. So, I don't know. I think 2 bananas to just kill off one of the images. And make the Khadgar not kill off one of the images as well. You can obviously kill the others.
Worst case with a Magic Trick, if you play it this turn and you hit, not a Conjurer's Calling, you could pick another cheap option if you really want to chain it with the Mana Cyclone.
It could have been a Blizzard.
No, it couldn't have. Discover a Mage spell that costs 1 to 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6th match of the day. No excuse, but that's the one I'm running with. It gets so awkward to keep track of all the different styles of discoveries that the deck can have. That yes, I mess up and I do apologize. Or am I just testing you, keeping you on your toes? You never know. 100% messed up. 100% messed up. Yeah.
And we're kind of seeing the slower game style from Staz here. It's going to be really difficult for him to come back into the game now. His Sea Giant's gone, so now...
Yeah.
I mean...
Was this one of the reasons to just play Ziliax?
No, I think I would... Sure, you could have played Ziliax as well, but I at least wanted to play Magic Trick to find some sort of way to grasp control of the board.
Observe.
Now, could it have been a Nova?
Sure,
There you go.
A Nova could have worked as well.
Oh, that would have been very good.
Yeah.
Wow. Not that obviously you can say, well, if he'd Magic Trick last turn, these are the spells he would have got. But the point being, there's a lot of cards that would have made this situation not happen.
Right.
At the cost of 1 mana.
Right. And worst case, Staz would have been able to re-roll and still have a cheap option to use with the Mana Cyclone.
And the big deal as well is, though, after just doing the magic trick, the rest of the options were still playable from hand, right? There could have still been the Ziliax, there could have still been, you know, maybe a banana, you know, with the Buffoon Ping or whatever, so there were still options.
I think Staz is playing a little too slowly. He should be fine because there's no mana discount. He doesn't have a Sorcerer's Apprentice down on the board, so the spells he gets from the Cyclone can't be played anyways.
Right.
But he is cutting it a bit close.
Okay, yep, he's played it. But you never know. It's definitely not a habit you want to get into, is it?
Yeah, it was fine now, but if that happens every turn, suddenly...
Well, we've seen it happen multiple times in just 2 weekends worth of play.
That's true.
Like I said, one full play is, one mediocre full play is better than one half good play.
Okay. Double Kodo coming down from Tom.
Not terrible, just the high health is just okay.
Fine. He's considering if he wants to trade all 3 of his minions into the Rabble Bouncer, and I think you do. You're far enough ahead on board. You don't really have ways to capitalize on the Kagura now anyway, so you might as well remove your opponent's 7 mana minion to play.
And also it allows you to do this, which defends your giant.
Yep,
which
that
is
as well.
Very important. With double Nova now, Tom can just kill Staz.
Yeah.
He just needs to not lose his giant this turn, and then he can attack Nova, so on, which is huge.
And that's one of the powers of having 2 Novas when your opponent does not have 2. If let's say you are in a stalemate where you both have an equal amount of board, the player who has more freezes will just win because eventually you can just punch through. But in this case, Tom has the option to go for let me ignore most of your board. I'm going to hit you in the face, play Frost Nova, and then I'm going to hit you in the face again. Staz needs to find something to dig his way out of this. His own Frost Nova can help for sure, but it still isn't present enough of a threat on board. He can punch through the Rabble Bouncer with the Acidic Swamp Ooze and clean up the mirror images with the Banana Buffoon and the Mana Cyclone. But that doesn't help him deal with the rest of the board, and this is his only natural freeze in the deck.
But I think he has to do it.
I think you do have to.
I think at that point you may as well throw down the...
You could... Ziliax could do a similar job, especially with the second half of the Ray of Frost, and you could have also Frost bolted without playing Ziliax. I think this is fine. This also lets you push a little bit with Banana Buffoon.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to get very creative in a matchup, especially like this Mage Mirror, where you have to get very creative in how you actually get to a win condition. I
do like some Staz not using the Frost Nova, finding another way to kind of stall the game because he knows that he's only running 1 and Tom is running 2. So in that sense, he's at a disadvantage. But it might still not be enough, even with holding back the... Tom might not even have to commit a Nova here, and he's considering, do I really need a Nova this board?
I think it's more weird if you don't, because I feel only stupid things could happen if you don't. Because this Ooze is a problem. It kills one of your big guys.
True.
And then the other minions kill another one of your big guys, or the Apprentice, or maybe the Giant.
Yeah,
so I think Nova attack should just be game. In a very simplified fashion, right? So I like this. You've got the cards, and the problem is, if Tom holds off, well, if he loses these minions, his hand is empty. Staz's isn't, so he needs to make this board work.
Staz, with the Frost Nova and the Conjurer's Calling drawn, at least in his eyes, has a way to come back. He just Conjurer's Calling's a Banana Buffoon. He can freeze the board and try to set up a counter lethal.
The issue is just, as you mentioned, like no Mana Cyclone for Staz means he can't make miracles happen, right? He has to just work with what he's got.
Interestingly, he could go look at Luna's Pocket Galaxy, Book of Specters, but I don't think that accomplishes quite what we need to get into this game.
It's where players start needing to use Faceless Manipulator tech, so they can Faceless their opponent's Giant and then Conjurer's Calling. Ooh,
Luna. I think Staz was trying to look for something like a Giant, a Mountain Giant rather. So Luna can't come down with a Conjurer's Calling and a Frost Nova. Staz can Conjurer's Calling the Banana Buffoon first to see what the draw is, but I believe Frost Nova is probably just going to come out. The second Ray of Frost was discarded. Yeah, the second Ray of Frost was discarded with Book of Specters, so that option isn't available anymore in his deck. Free Sea Giant, Nova, go. quick. I like it. Holds back the mythification. No reason to play it.
Nope, not at all.
Okay. If Staz can find some other way, perhaps there's a magic trick left in the deck that he can discover another Nova off of. You can Frostbolt the Mountain Giant, which leaves 11, 19, 22 damage on board. Not quite enough.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Go for it.
Do you ever aim, because the board's so full, do you ever aim a Conjures at the opponent's Sorcerer's Apprentice?
You might have to.
I'm just thinking, like, look at this board, not so much size in many minions, but the actual stats on those minions. Staz is losing.
I think this is a Doomsayer play. I think you have to find that. There's no other way I see you stay alive.
The Nova board limits what you can even do.
Exactly.
You can't Khadgar summon new things. He can't even play the Astromancer to try and get something else. He can't just spam Conjurers on his own minions to try and get charges or taunts or whatever. He's got nothing else. So I think he has to just aim all of those Conjurers callings at every single 2-drop that gets summoned from that Sorcerer's Apprentice and just say, let's go. He's going to go for it.
Staz
A
recognizing.
little bit late, but still, you can just
Go
keep
again.
going.
You have 2 more shots.
Ooh,
You need to go a little faster.
Because you can still Frostbolt the Giant.
Underbelly Angler.
Okay, Frostbolt's the Giant in. Does he do anything else? I'm not sure now. Did he just...
That is going to be lethal for Tom. 23 damage on board, 24 with the ping. Now there's 21.
Plenty of damage anyway. It looks like
22 with the ping.
Tom's minions add up to La Lethal. So Tom is going to take game number 1. And again, I kind of just loved the way Tom played. And that's what I was meaning was, I think you just have to go aggressive. You just say, no, I'm doing everything first. So you use your removal and stalls. So then even if you even it up, you have minions and I have minions and stalls as well.
Right.
So these key turns we saw, Frost Nova into Frost Nova just means you can't do anything. And there are only 7 minions allowed on the board at any given time. So once that board's full and Nova'd, your plays as the mage are extremely limited. Tom is leading over Staz 1-0. Is he going to sweep this? Find out after the break.
Welcome to Hearthstone Masters. Today, we're going to share one of the biggest changes coming to Hearthstone in 2019, an entirely new competitive format called Specialist. Specialist will be the default competitive format for Hearthstone Masters. From online Masters qualifiers to live Masters Tour events to the pinnacle of competition, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Ready to learn how the new Specialist format works? Let's dive right in. In this new competitive format, players select 3 30-card decks to bring to a Specialist tournament. The catch? All decks must be from the same class. In this regard, Specialist is a major departure from most other competitive formats. Amongst every player's 3 Specialist decks, 1 is designated as the primary deck. The player's other 2 decks are designated as secondary and tertiary decks. There are no special limitations placed on a player's primary deck aside from regular Hearthstone deck construction rules. However, a player's secondary and tertiary decks must share at least 25 cards in common with their primary deck. In other words, secondary and tertiary decks must mirror the primary deck with up to 5 cards swapped out. It is important to point out that duplicate cards count when comparing to a primary deck. For example, if you want to include 2 copies of Twilight Drake in your secondary deck, and there are no copies of Twilight Drake in your primary deck, then you must spend 2 swaps to include both cards. Unique or not, if a card isn't in your primary deck, it counts towards the 5-card difference limit. A player's primary deck is important for another reason. Whenever a new match starts, both its players must begin by piloting their primary deck. Only after the first game concludes can you choose to swap into your secondary or tertiary deck. You do not announce which of your decks you will be using in the next game, and you do not have to swap. After every game, this process repeats, allowing players to swap or stay until the match concludes. Importantly, you can swap to any of your decks between games, primary, secondary, or tertiary, including returning to your primary deck if you have previously swapped out of it. And those are all the rules for Specialist, Hearthstone's new official competitive format. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start brewing your own primary, secondary, and tertiary decks to get a jump start on the new format and innovate like the pros.
Let the battle begin!
We're back for maybe the last game of the Asia Pacific Grandmasters this week. It's going to be Tom versus Staz, and Tom is currently leading 1-0 in the Mage Mirror. And Tom had taken a very aggressive approach in the previous game, and it paid off for him in spades. But let's take a look at the list the players have moved to as they have their counter mage decks. It's going to be tom60229 moving to his secondary deck, which is the double Quest and Adventure, BGH, and a Blizzard, and then the removal of some of the more slow, clunky minions. What do you make of these tech choices?
Quest and Adventures are interesting. I've talked about this a little bit before. I really like the card in the mirror. In the mirror, you want to be playing a threat for as cheap as possible, and sometimes Mountain Giant you can get to down to 3 mana, but oftentimes it might be difficult, especially if you're on the play. Quest and Adventure lets you play 3 mana for a threat that just ends up growing after that, so you know for sure you're getting a threat for 3 mana, and then from there it can get bigger. I do like that a lot. BGH is something the big game hunter. I haven't seen too much played in Mage Mirrors, but it kind of makes a lot of sense. If your opponent gets a Giant down first, just like playing it without Conjurer's Calling, you can BGH, and now your BGH can be used as a threat in itself, because you can Conjurer's Calling that if you don't have your own Giant. So I do like that. The extra freeze can help a lot too. We see Tom definitely values having the freeze in the mirror. He has 2 Frost Novas in the main list.
And I like, personally, for me, the Quest Adventures are really cool because depending on what stage in the game you are and what cards you've seen from your opponent, you can choose how big you want to make it on that initial turn you play it. So you can decide, oh, I've not seen any Ray of Frost yet, I'm just going to hold off a little bit. Or, okay, I'm going to actually buff it to, say, 4 or 5 health, which means that it's more than likely going to live, and then you can continue wreaking havoc with it afterwards. Yeah, it's really cool that you have so much control over how durable the minion is or isn't. But let's check out Staz's list and how it differs as well, because he isn't bringing the exact cards. He does have the Quest Adventurers, but he does have 2 Polymorphs instead, and has chucked out the Ziliax, Vexcrow, Swampoos, and 1 Rebel Bouncer.
Right, so a lot of the cards that aren't useful in the matchup have been removed. The Questings, same thing, similar uses. I do like that being included. The Polymorphs are interesting to me. Some people have opted to put in Snap Freezes that they can use in combination with the Ray of Frost or the Frost Nova to clear up big threats. The Polymorphs are a bit, they're a bit more expensive in terms of how much mana you have to use, but it's more flexible. You don't have to use it with another card to be able to deal with something. You can just say, all right, Polymorph, good. The sheep's there, that's it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're bored of me by now, definitely after 2 weeks, but it's something we've been talking a lot about, and at least I've been pushing, or trying to push, is that with a deck like Cyclone Mage that requires so many different cards to come together to create these powerful combos, I'm actually liking more and more it's like sort of semi-tech choices. It's like single cards that do stuff. Yeah. So Polymorph is the removal option, and for example, like just a 1 of Power of Creation for just 1 card, you draw it, you play it, it creates 2 minions and go. Yeah. And I feel like although they're often more expensive than, say, for example, the Astromancer, which is 7, but which does a similar job, but it requires a single card that is fairly consistent, as 6 drops are in a good spot right now. And Polymorph is the same, right? You know, as you said, instead of some other removal, Polymorph's just 1 card that completely negates one minion, and it's also, you can just leave it up. You don't care about the sheep at all. So even if you can't ping it, Polymorph on curve is absolutely fine.
It's just fine.
Let's go into the game. Talk to me about these opening hands.
All right, flipping the game this time, Tom has the coin. Staz has Arcane Intellect in his opening hand. Likely going to keep that. Ray of Frost, you don't really want that early. Now the same thing with the Sea Giant. Staz recognizes that. Tom considering what else he wants to keep here. I believe he kept, I don't know if I saw that correctly, Apprentice and Elemental Evocation. Interesting. So Tom opting for a more aggressive way of mulliganing. He really values going for the Mana Cyclones, it looks like. I think that's why he kept the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Elemental Evocation. Generally on coin, you want to be finding Giant, Arcane Intellect, Banana Buffoon, stuff that lets you get that big minion down quickly. But also, with the addition of Questing Adventure on both sides, sometimes you can just go in with a Apprentice Questing and just go tall like that instead of going for the Giant. Yeah.
And this turn is very interesting to me because it's one, you know, there's a lot of criticism of Specialists, right, of the format from many directions, but One thing I do like right now is they've just played this matchup more or less apart from a few tech cards, right?
Yep.
Tom,
Very similar.
we've seen players and Tom like play Apprentice. Just play it and go, right?
And
Staz has the opportunity, and he just lost to Tom, who played Apprentice and Go.
Yeah.
How much of that rubs off on you, right? How much you go, well, he did it, and it was pretty awkward.
I
and
really
boom,
like it here,
Apprentice Go. I'm not saying Staz did it purely because Tom did, but it's something that comes into a best of 3, right? When you're playing very, especially the mirror.
Yeah.
So my opponent played like this, and he won. Should I play more like this? Should I try and make these
That
plays?
can
and
definitely
we see
have
a
an
mirror
influence.
happen here.
I do like, with the context of Staz's hand, the fact that he went for the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Even just playing a questing adventure as a 2/2 on turn 3 is fine.
Especially depending on what this Apprentice fishes out from Tom.
Exactly. If
Because
you
if
see
the
double
Ray
Ray of
of
Frost,
Frost,
exactly, then you're like, okay, one Ray of Frost gone, bam, questing.
Let's go.
Now what?
And then you have Intellect to follow with, or a second questing. And once you get 2 questings down,
Oh boy.
that is very few decks have a way to answer that,
Yeah.
apart from what
Definitely.
a Super Collider, for example, is a 1-card answer.
I don't know where all those quests are coming from, but they will be there. So Tom answers with Sorcerer's Apprentice and the 2 Ray of Frost, recognizing that it is indeed a threat.
Perfect answer as well.
Yeah, definitely. This plays around Staz just developing a questing adventure, just preemptively putting something on the board that can deal with it.
And one of the problems as well is, even if Staz had exactly the same tools,
Yep.
so if he had Ray of Frost, right? Oh, he kills the Apprentice, fine. He double Ray of Frosts on turn 3,
Instead
which
of,
feels
yeah,
bad,
it feels pretty
right?
bad.
And so even if you give both players the same cards, the order in which they're played is extremely important. And now it's just draw, and now Tom gets a little bit more leeway
Yep.
to do what he wants here, although both players with double evocation and not a lot else, to be completely
the
honest.
thing is with Tom's hand, there's not much you can do. I don't think you want to preemptively just throw down the mirror images. There's no charge minions, there's no weapons project you have to worry about in this matchup, so I think just ping face is fine. Maintain hand size and save some extra spells for Mana Cyclone if that pops up. Staz has the option here of going Questing Adventure Mirror Image, which does protect the Questing Adventure. You've seen 1 Ray of Frost come out already from Staz. Staz has seen that from Tom. So the Questing Adventure can be protected just behind 1 copy of Mirror Image.
Would you ever play an evocation as well, to just give it that little bit extra?
It plays around exactly 2nd Ray of Frost.
Right.
I don't think I would.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, with 0 Giant, 0 Cyclones in hand, is it just worth it? Maybe the questions win you the game. It's tough. I don't know.
If 2nd Ray of Frost comes down, what else is Tom developing? If Tom had a questing, I think he would have played it this turn, so Staz can maybe read that there's no questing.
What about Cyclone turn, though?
Potentially.
It's just an interesting.
It's hard to play around random Cyclone stuff, though. And
Oh,
even just the fact that there is... Oh, you mean, do you want to hold it for...
Well, no. For me, the main question is just, you have 2 evocations and nothing to evocate.
Sure.
So, evocation, if that red +1/+1 to a minion, would you play on questing that turn? If you were just slamming questing and
no,
images?
I think I would have held it.
Okay.
Only because Tom's already played a Ray of Frost.
Ooh.
I don't know how much I like this from Staz.
Give me a quest.
I
Now
feel like,
Tom's doing it first,
That's-
which is the fear. There is
that's-
polymorph,
right.
There's polymorph.
but then again, you're being... Staz will be reactive, and Tom is still the aggressor, right? You need to do something, and I think Staz might be playing a bit too slowly. The Banana Buffoon is not bad, and you still have the option of bananaing a questing later on, but...
This Apprentice being alive for so long is
Right,
absurd, isn't it?
yeah.
It's like...
And that's kind of the funny thing, because for the longest time, people just didn't play it in this matchup. And when you look at games like this, it's like, that Apprentice pushed... Okay, in this game it didn't push that much damage, but it cleared a mirror image. It did hit face once. It's doing
It's potentially
stuff.
6 damage already, and it's still alive,
Yeah.
right? And the problem is now, if you polymorph the quest in, which you pretty much have to,
you
I
pretty
feel,
much you can
then
do it
the
later.
Apprentice lives.
Right, so you can do it a bit later if you want to. The problem is, what else are you doing this turn? Like, if you go questing, Tom can buff up his own questing and kill off your questing
Like-
without having to expend much else.
Trade Conjurer's Calling.
Which also doesn't feel great.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel great. That is not a suggestion I'm happy with giving.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think of impactful things Staz can do that actually might win him a game here. Oh, okay. So we're going to make a 2/4 image that
This
can
means
trade
that,
off both
right,
images.
This means that the Apprentice can't just trade into it. A ping has to come out to be able to get past it. Or the questing can punch through the mirror image, but then the Sorcerer's Apprentice won't be able to kill off the questing adventure.
He did go for the evocation to push it to 5 as well, so
Right.
out of ping range. Which again, I definitely like that there's, because it was definitely dead
Yep.
if Tom wanted to, so I do like the evocation there.
I like this from Staz this turn, but I would have liked it a lot more last turn. Obviously, he wouldn't have been able to do the exact same thing, but I would have liked developing the questing the turn prior, especially when you have 2.
This
Interesting from Tom.
can mountain giant, right?
Yeah, you could. You can.
Is there a
Double
massive
evocation.
reason not to? Do you just say let's go race?
No, I like it.
It makes a what? A 6/6.
It makes the questing a bit bigger too, which means you can trade with the apprentice into the mirror image, ping it off, trade the questing into Staz's questing, and then you just have a giant on the board too. Your questing would live with 1 health.
What if you coin as well then to put it to 2, so it can't be pinged? Because you have Nova.
I think you need some
BGH
extra
and
gas
Colin.
if you end up drawing Cyclone.
Time runs out on me.
Let's go for Nova.
Oh, this is a... Oh, I like this a lot from Tom, actually. For a couple of reasons. One, it feigns that Tom does not have an answer for this questing, and Staz isn't just going to pass, so his questing is going to become a bit bigger. Tom can use the BGH next turn after the questing becomes larger than a 7/7 to just kill it. And this way, he uses the Frost Nova to push damage, maintain board, and most importantly, keep his own questing alive.
This seems good.
Yeah, seems good.
And again, let's just mention the 1 BGH is a tech in Tom's deck that he put in his secondary deck as a choice. So the potential just 1 extra swing is absolutely huge here, especially if you expect your opponent to also add extra minions that can go big.
True. It's possible that Staz just goes polymorph on the questing and pings it off, his opponent's questing, Tom. In that case, the questing does stay at 6/6 and plays around Big Game Hunter, so I'm curious to see if Staz does that, or opts to just spend his mana more efficiently, like draw some cards. The thing is, you do kind of have to deal with your opponent's questing. That getting out of hand can be a bit of a problem. So polymorph is just fine here, and it does play around... Uh-oh.
He's going big.
This is
He's going big and wide. Whoa!
Wow. That is...
It literally grew up. It was Banana Buffoon into King Mukla. He's been promoted.
Oh boy. So even with a powerful Conjurer's Calling coming out from Staz, I think this swing turn from Tom, especially with Arcane Intellect draw, that's going to be pretty big. If he picks up something like a Ray of Frost as well.
That's a Blizzard. Not for now, of course, but for the following turns, he's like, he can... Well, I mean, maybe he could Blizzard now.
I think he's looking at that.
He could coin Blizzard. That's 2 extra attacks. We can push 7, push 10 this turn, and then next turn he just wins.
All right. I think from Tom's perspective,
Jeez.
if Staz had Polymorph, that would have been like an okay turn of Polymorph. But perhaps Staz wanted to keep it for something else. I'm not sure.
Okay, he's going to go for the BGH.
He does settle for the BGH.
This is like a safe middle ground.
Right, it lets him take a B team to the Spell Ward Drooler.
I'm just presuming that's correct. Yeah.
Sure. And this also plays on Polymorph too. Like, the questing having a couple of trades and you polymorph that, it's killed 2 things already.
It's
like,
done a great job. And 4 mana out of a 7 mana turn. It's a lot of mana. It's more than half. You need help with that maths.
It is.
And that's a lot, you know. And Tom's got follow-up. It's not like Tom's all in on this board. He actually does have a level of follow-up right now. Oh, no.
These are some wonderful options. Frostbolt can be used immediately to clean something up off the board. Frost Nova can be taken and saved for later, for when there needs to be some board tension and just saying, all right, let me ignore this and go face.
It's... okay. It gets so tricky because when both players are discovering and teching freezes, more and more freezes,
It becomes
you have to
complicated.
work out, like, it's not only how good is this turn, is does this freeze get better or worse? And if I freeze, what if they freeze and then they get the attack? Well, then what if I can freeze again and I get the attack? It's all about who gets that first freedom turn to actually be able to either choose trades or push damage.
I like the Frostbolt being picked up.
Whoa,
Ray of Frost is
okay.
powerful too. So Staz, yes, I like this from Staz. Excellent, okay. I was going to say, if he was trading into the Apprentice, I want to see the Elemental Evocation come out, just so Tom can't trade the BGH into the Questing Adventure and ping it off. I like this. This was good. Blizzard coming out from
Blizzard
Tom
trade, yeah.
means that
Tom wants to just
Staz's
say,
board is
like,
gone.
nope, I ain't playing these questing games anymore. Or at least not with Staz's questing
Right.
adventures.
this powerful 8-mana giant, you play it, 8/8/8, perfect.
But Tom can do more.
Can he?
Yes.
he can.
He can double evocate giant into the Conjurer's Call.
Bit scary if you do hit the Grave Horror because Staz could value trade and then Conjurer's Calling himself.
It is, but
I mean, you do have to do something, I agree.
yes. Sell me something else, language hacker.
What to do?
Mountain Giant. Magic
Pass.
trick. I mean, Tom's considering the very real possibility of Staz having Conjurer's Calling. I mean, no, he knows that there's a Conjurer's Calling in hand because that's
Yeah,
the
'cause
second
he
half.
did it on the
right.
yeah, he did it on the Banana Buffoon earlier.
It's a scary play. Because if Tom hits that Grave Horror and Staz just takes the value trade and Conjurer's Calling, Tom just finds himself on the back foot now. Even with more cards in hand, well, actually, you spend a lot of cards to actually get to that point. I think he's playing this and hoping he gets to
two
two giants. Looks relaxed. Oh, nope, that's a wince. Grave Horror.
Okay, 1-on-1. It does mean though,
Mm-hmm.
Staz has the same problem, right?
That's true.
He trades,
that's fair.
he does it, and then if
If the Grave Horror
then
pops
Tom
up again,
does
yeah.
it again, right?
It's such an interesting dynamic that the two 12-mana cards are an 8/8 and a 7/8.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
What's really funny is just wait, next expansion do 12 mana.
Oh.
Whoa, whoa.
And the Pollen
That's a
coming
big
out.
turn.
It's going to be difficult for Tom to come back here. I'm trying to figure out how he does.
Understatement of the year, or at least of the day.
Even if he manages to find some way to keep this board on lockdown for a bit and maybe get a runaway questing adventure, Staz has two full Ray of Frost in hand, so that questing would likely never hit Staz's face.
Well, that Sea Giant is
That's
it's
gonna get
not going to be
ripped, yeah.
allowed to play this game, I think. Oh, even just Khadgar Mirror Image. You've just seen a Sea Giant.
Yep.
Not that you particularly need it for Staz.
I
You
think
can
you might want to hold back and not play 4 images.
just have board space.
Yeah, that might be a way that you end up in some trouble, because if you do Khadgar images, your board is full. If some freezes come out from Tom, you only have 18 damage on board, and you can't actually... it depends if you hit the Sea Giant here or not. I guess if you go face, it's fine, because you still set up lethal. But if you don't do this and do that play, where you fill up your board, if Tom has some freezes and eventually develops a board that's big enough to contest yours, then the board space becomes a problem, because you can't develop anything else. But I like this a lot. Mulch Puncher. Okay. Damage Stegatron. Ray of Frost.
You're saying there's a chance.
Snap Freeze. Mirror Image.
Cards?
Astral Rift into
Oh.
Earth Elemental, but that's a little too late.
Has to be-
A taunt needs to come out
doesn't
here.
look like it.
That is not a taunt.
Staz still has to consider Vaporize,
He does.
but I don't think he has a choice, because he loses anyway. Right?
I mean,
Are you really trading any of these giants?
no, I think you try to test for some stuff first, and then decide what to go for.
Staz
I
aiming stuff to face.
dislike this a lot. I think Staz should have at least tried playing some spells to see what the secret was. That could have been very scary. If that was a Vaporize, that game could have been lost.
Hey, it could have been, but even if it was a Vaporize...
You can freeze enough the board, true, but you get...
But the problem is, how do you ever proc the Vaporize without a giant? If you play
Khadgar.
Khadgar, it's likely it dies, right?
Fair, but I think you could have started off the turn just testing for some stuff, just in case.
Anyway, Staz does even it up there, 1-1 versus Tom, so everything to play for in this last game. Don't go anywhere, there's only one more left. We'll be right back.
We recently revealed Hearthstone's all-new 3-tiered esports program. Masters qualifiers are already well underway, and now we're ready to share details on the highest level of competitive play, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Are you ready to unlock all the secrets of Hearthstone Grandmasters?
Come close and listen.
Here goes. Hearthstone Grandmasters is the pinnacle of Hearthstone esports, composed of 48 of the best pro players in the entire world. Grandmasters is divided into 3 regions: Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific, with each represented by 16 pros. These pros are selected by special invitation from Blizzard Entertainment. Criteria for selection include lifetime earnings, Hearthstone competitive points earned, contributions to the Hearthstone community, and more. So who are the lucky Grandmasters? Stay tuned because in the coming weeks we'll be revealing the inaugural Grandmaster roster region by region. In 2019, there will be 2 seasons of Hearthstone Grandmasters. Each season will feature 8 weeks of world-class competition played out in online tournaments. Grandmasters pros will earn both prize money and performance-based bonuses during the season, and they will automatically qualify to compete at all Hearthstone Masters Tour events, guaranteeing these marquee tournaments feature the fiercest competitors possible. And the best part? You won't miss a second of the action because matches will be broadcast live on twitch.tv/playhearthstone. 5 matches will be broadcast every Friday, with 5 more every Saturday. And if that isn't enough Hearthstone action, there will be 6 matches broadcast every Sunday.
More souls!
Mark your calendars because the first season begins on May 17th. Hearthstone Grandmasters is the pinnacle of professional Hearthstone, where the world's best pros battle it out every weekend online. Think you've got what it takes to reach the top? The path to Grandmasters starts with our Masters qualifier tournaments, so sign up today.
Each teammate I'm calling has stories. This tale's about riches and glories. Deep down in the earth, a king dreams of rebirth and refilling his gold inventories. Such a shame to have lost all that treasure. Join up, be a kobold of leisure. The cards now be calling. Someone new, no more stalling. And we next will be taking her measure.
It's final game time here as we have tom60229 versus Staz. Game number 3 coming right up. It's going to be the Mage Mirror, and this is for all the marbles and for the end of the Asia Pacific Grandmasters week number 2. Language Hacker, do you think it's going to be a repeat here? Staz is going to get that second win again, or is Tom going to take the victory?
In Mage Mirrors like these, I feel very reluctant to choose a side because...
Well, I feel, pressured to make what you, so go for it. Pick
yeah,
on.
okay. I think Tom's a little favored having 3 freezes, but Mage Mirrors are crazy, and I think a lot of things can happen in these.
That is very, very true indeed. So I'll let you off with that halfway answer. I'll give.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. It's a gift since it's the last cast. Okay, let's go straight into it. Tom's opening hand, which I do feel is extremely impactful in just the overall game plan of the Mage deck, because you could say that about any deck, of course, but Hunter, their opening hand, well, they want 1, 2, 3 drops to play aggressively,
right, yeah.
Generally, right? That's just the plan. But this deck, I feel like you really do bend to like the will of the draw a lot of the time, and we'll see what the players do here. There is Evocation, Cyclone, and Ray of Frost, so there is early answers for Tom here. If, say, for example, we see another Sorcerer's Apprentice on 2,
Could be pretty
we'll
crazy.
see. Staz his opening hand a little bit more wide and varied than Tom's, I would say.
Tom seems to be favoring these Cyclone. Ooh, yeah, that Apprentice isn't bad. Okay.
Bit slow this time.
Yeah. Tom's looking at Banana Buffoon into a Cyclone turn on 4, perhaps. So now Staz has a much different hand context than last game, so I'm curious to see if he goes for the Apprentice this turn or not. Looks like he's holding it.
Really tricky as well. Double Sea Giant. Sea Giant's not the most consistent threat you can play in this matchup.
Right.
Obviously with mirror images is perfectly timed, thank you game. With mirror images, especially with Khadgar, you can make Sea Giants work, but you normally either play them very easily or you don't play them a lot of the time in this matchup. I think you never really have that middle ground giant of the sea variety, at least.
Staz has a decision to make now. He can go in for like a mini Cyclone turn, where he just goes Apprentice, Images, Coin, Cyclone, just to get that on the board. He only gets 2 spells from it, but develops 2 minions.
And a lot of defense for those 2 minions as well.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if he does that.
What about
Questing Coin Image?
Questing Coin Image, yeah. It feels bad for the Cyclone, but what does your opponent do?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, like there's not.
I don't hate it.
Especially because Tom's not running these polymorphs that Staz is running, right?
Right, or even
So
snap freezes. Like,
yeah,
there's no,
there's no just direct no sort of answer that's available. Staz is going to go for the, I would say, more straightforward play with the Cyclone.
Ooh,
but I
okay.
did consider questing there. Icicle and Snap Freeze, not a bad little combo.
definitely not cards to pick up in the matchup. They often find uses. Dealing 2 is useful, drawing a card is useful.
Look at these Ray of Frosts. So insane. Such a good card.
Tom going in for the Cyclone. What's in the box? Could be anything.
No, only mage spells, I believe.
Oh, okay. 2 mirror images, a polymorph.
And a
Tom,
vape.
yeah, Tom doesn't have hard removal in his mage deck, at least in this one. So having that as a kind of a question mark
Bonus
for
card,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And also the Vaporize, we saw how important games can be based on what those secrets are, and if Tom had a Vaporize last game, maybe he would have won because Staz wouldn't have just got lethal, you know.
Perhaps.
So Vaporize does get some work done because normally you are only trying to attack with the big guys.
Especially when it's random too. If it's something like a magic
Right,
trick,
right.
some players tend to see that as a, it's much more possible.
You
that it's
can
a
read
Vaporize.
into it more, right?
Right.
Whereas literally random mage secret is just,
Created by.
Observe.
if anything, you go more the other way, right? The odds on it not being exactly the problem
Yeah.
one are higher than it is being, right? And now, Tom is slightly edging towards the turns where he can do questing
Staz
things.
almost has a Sea Giant, but not quite.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's in this matchup, I feel like it's never like decent. It's always insane, i.e. 0 or like 1 or something, or it's just 10 and
Staz
not
is
playable.
opting to clear the board here. Yeah, and it sucks when it's at 10. And when it's at 0, some serious things already happening on the board.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It's or you've just card guard
Give me a
imaged.
quest.
I do like this from Tom now. Just get cooking with these questions.
I like holding the second image. Yeah, I like this banana a lot better. Playing the image means that Staz would be able to play a Sea Giant if that was in his hand, which it is.
But now this is the polymorphs are very good, right? Single target removal,
Yep.
pretty much, regardless of the minion, as long as it's targetable. But the problem is, it's his whole turn.
Not even opting to polymorph. Staz thinks that he needs draw more cards first.
And double Ray of Frost to kill off this image.
That questing,
And then go.
especially with the second questing in hand, because Tom could just play the second one.
Yeah. And we were saying straight away when we talked about questing tech at the start of the matchup, when you have 2,
Observe.
I don't know how you're supposed to deal with them at all. It would honestly probably need Conjurer's Call.
Yeah.
And that creates 4 3-drops for
Which
your
is still
opponent, which
scary,
isn't
yeah.
good, but I don't know any other way to deal with questions right now, especially with the pair.
Submit a royal decree to stop all quests,
Yeah,
There must be a way.
which is not possible in this game.
it is not.
At least not in this expansion.
I wondered if there's even going to be a snap freeze there. To just say, no, not this turn, and then maybe I can
Yeah,
polymorph
yes.
ping next turn.
That magic trick pickup 2. My goodness, these
Oh,
quests. And the counterspell.
This-
Ray of
this-
Frost, 9 damage pushed through, 2 questing adventures.
This is getting too much because now Tom's just starting to gain all these things that mess with Staz. So there's the Vaporize for when the big guys come down, the counter spell to just mess up turns, 2 minions that are only going to basically lethal him next turn if he doesn't do something about them. The problem is he can only deal with 1. The only way he deals with 2 here to a certain extent is Frost Nova Snap Freeze, and then polymorph the turn after.
The problem is you're spending all this mana reacting from Staz's
Oh,
point, right? Yeah.
This is literally a I don't die next
Yeah.
turn play, which isn't great, but it stops you literally losing. So I think he has to. Like, what play is even remotely safe here? If you Nova, I feel like you have to Snap Freeze, all these questions are immortal.
Pretty much.
And if you're doing that, well, welcome to the world, that's your turn. At least then you can poly the other one and ping it next turn.
Now, that being said, Staz is in a bit of trouble here and he has to play quite reactively. But if he manages to get past these 2 questings, Tom doesn't have anything else to develop. There's no minions, just some spells.
That's what I'm saying, like, Nova Snap Freeze and then poly ping,
Yeah.
we can see, at least from our view, is insane. Obviously,
Poly ping.
Staz has to presume Tom has a backup, right?
Perhaps.
I don't think you can always assume your opponent's got no
I think you know 4 of those spells are random, and
Ooh, okay.
is that even good? Well, it's almost good. If you had 1 more mana, Tom could go Secret Cyclone, which I think would just be fine. I think you might want to develop the counterspell this turn, just to help prevent this. I like this a lot. You don't
I
have
think
to
the
be...
counterspell always comes down when your opponent's got an empty board, right?
All right. Focus Spectres, sure. Get some more gas. If Tom loses spells here, you know, that happens, it's fine. But what he needs is more gas, right? Just in case this questing gets...
This is the triple discard.
Oh, that's fine. I mean...
He needs minions,
yeah,
right?
he needs minions.
Second poly off the top. We do know Staz already had an answer to this question, but now, especially with that magic trick, it means he can test for counterspell, which is a big deal.
Definitely. The thing is, Staz is at 12 health. Eventually, you could get to a point where just pings are threatening.
Also... Okay, let's see what happens here. I guess polymorph ping. I don't see anything else.
Yeah, I think you might have to save the Frost Nova
But
for later.
Funnily enough, does Tom ever ping his own image and then Blast Wave? Depending on his draw, of course.
I don't hate that.
Because it's just
It also makes
draw
Sea
2
Giant
spells
harder to play,
and,
yeah.
and then stop Sea Giant. Okay, Tom, ping your own 0-2.
The problem is it does kill off the Cyclone. The Cyclone is
Pushing.
doing stuff right now, so
And it means
I
you
think,
can put
yeah.
ping to face. Maybe next turn.
It's something that could be done eventually, yeah. And if the Cyclone's dealt with.
It's just something to bear in mind, because so that, you know, what we want Fireball away from a good time for Tom, right?
Yep. Playing the... Staz is consider everything. Playing the Buffoon first in case it's Entity. Finds out it's not.
Doesn't mean he's got to be worried about this dude too. It's so bad.
That's the
It's like-
thing.
I was like, does he have to Nova?
When
It's so-
No.
I know.
But
I'm just saying, like, for a second,
honestly,
I was like,
though,
ooh.
there are some random cards in Tom's hand, right?
It's lethal if he's got a Fireball. This is some extreme violin being played right now, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure some music expert will correct me, and it's not actually a violin. It's some
I don't think
obscure.
it's not a violin. But
Is it not? Are you a music expert that's going to correct me and show me? What is it?
my dad used to play the violin. I can't tell you what it is, but that's,
Oh,
I don't.
well,
It
don't care
doesn't
then.
sound like a
it's a
conventional
violin. If you can't correct me, then I'm choosing to believe it's a violin.
That's fine.
I always wanted to play the violin. Small
yeah?
fun fact that not many people know yet.
Interesting. Big Game Hunter picked up, questing just under the I've got the beast in my sights range.
You've got to be this tall to ride.
Yeah. It's true. Polymorph gonna have to cut it for now. BGH can still be used on just giants later. I
There's a
like this
Wave,
blast
that's
wave.
2 spells.
Conch Calling is not
yeah.
bad.
And
Because Staz does need to get on the board, so if a giant does come down at some point, Tom just goes BGH, Conch Calling, go.
And Blizzard is a card Tom's teched into his deck, so him getting an extra ain't so bad, right? You know,
I mean,
this is a card people play.
Tom is getting to the point where he's just scraping by to end the game, but I think with the cards in his hand, he might be able to do it.
You know what's is that Ray of Frost original? So he's got 2 of them. Like
Tom
twin
or
spells?
Staz?
Tom's.
I believe so,
Does he
yeah.
have 2?
Yeah, I think he has 2. I think that's a twin spell.
I was working out whether he has enough freeze to get him 7 pings. Because he's getting it.
Quite
He
possibly.
has 4, technically, depending on the volume of minions.
I mean, this is
it's so crazy.
stemming from the fact that Tom took a much more aggressive, like tempo-oriented line, and Staz held back a little bit earlier. Actually, it might have been last game. There's been so many questings. I'm losing track of even which questings were played in which games.
Welcome to being a caster when you
Yeah,
cast in
yeah.
for many matchups and you start saying things that happened yesterday. You're like, no, this is
I mean, difficult from Staz here too. To make this questing bigger, you'd have to use cards that you don't really want to use because you need them for freezing. Which he's playing out a 2-2 questing.
could he have Ray of Frost his own minion, Ray of Frost his own minion, and then Mana Cyclone just to get
Could have, but
something?
that would have been a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
I think from,
BGH go.
you honestly could. So
I am not
I like
joking.
it.
I joke a lot about suggesting really bad plays. I think this is a good play. You need to just say, Staz, if you do not do something, you are just dead. And every single turn as well, just threat, 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 threat. Even if those threats come in the form of pings.
Yeah.
He didn't ping this turn. He chose to kill off the questing, which is absolutely fine, of course. But even every turn he can whip a ping in, it's like, well, one less turn, one less turn, one less turn. Plus as well, let's just remind it, Staz removed Ziliax in this list,
right.
so he literally has not got heal.
This damage
outside of a
permanence
nice
is
barrier.
permanent.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any world where a Giant is coming. I suppose you could play Giant, Ray of Frost to try and just get something large on the board.
He knows it's not entity, correct?
Yeah, he
So
knows it's not entity. He also knows it's not counterspell.
So it's just barrier.
And he knows it's not spellbender.
Yeah, so barrier, vape,
And splitting image.
and split image.
I like Nova, Ray of Frost, Cyclone. Just clean up the board. Don't let there be any other
Could still
Conjurer's
do
Calling
that.
targets. Yeah.
Can Tom play it? Kind of
I think having 2 minions on board like this, I'm not sure.
Spellbender? Okay.
No, he knows about the Spellbender though. I'm just curious why he didn't kill off the Starving Blizzard, because it leaves a...
Oh no, sorry, I meant Staz had got Spellbender.
Oh, yeah,
That's all- yeah, sorry, I was just naming the secret.
Right,
I'll be
right.
quiet again, carry on.
I'm curious why he played the banana instead of just killing off the Buzzard. Conjurer's Calling from Tom can just come out.
He knows it's there. And this turn is scary, never mind Conjurer's
This
Calling.
turn is scary. The tools of creation can be very scary. And this is kind of where Stargazer Luna can really shine in the mirror. Oh, goodness. Wow. Archmage, come on, give Staz a chance.
Jeez. Calm down, Archmage. You've only just shown up. You've done no work
Right,
all
come on,
game.
yeah.
Come on. Be nice.
Staz's only Frost Nova has been used. So, what? There's an apprentice on Tom's board. Conjurer's Calling could come out to find a Doomsayer. Are we that desperate from Staz's perspective? He has 4 Ray of Frost, I believe? No, he has 3.
He has 3.
He has
Yeah,
3.
He played one last year. So he has 3. You can Ray of Frost the 6/6 to 4/12, and
The problem is there's still too much damage left. Even with 3 freezes. You could throw in a Snap Freeze as well, 4.
I think you have to, right?
Yeah, I
So
guess.
these Giants are 0, which is good.
I guess 5, you have 2 Snap
He
Freezes.
can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. He can still Conjurer's Call and he can pink. Or he can banana.
Does he have mana? Do you need to
Wait.
triple Ray of Frost, double Snap Freeze?
Right? That's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 Snap Freezes in hand.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Yeah,
okay,
there's a
okay,
second
you want
one
to
too.
double Snap Freeze. Okay. Does he
I
have
don't know.
to? I'm just wondering if a Conjurer's is better than double Snap Freeze. I think 1 Snap Freeze Conjurer's is better, right?
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. Ooh! Oh!
He missed attack.
Oh, you can't. If your turn has a chance of being complicated, let's see if you finished it before I complain.
I don't think the much run off.
But I don't think. Oh, huge. Oh my, oh my. Even though that's just draw a card, but also look at this Blizzard I spoke about earlier.
Hakar is a threat at this point too if it dies.
Yep. Just
Also,
do it.
I think the game's going to be over before the Hakar dies, let's be real. And
Blizzard.
with rolling freezes coming out from Tom, it's going to be hard
also-
for Staz to come back into this.
Wait, this is a huge problem. He didn't kill the 2/4, which pushed 2 damage, which means now with freeze ping and then attack pings, he's just setting up lethal like a turn. This is crazy.
Yeah. Staz can go for the Conjurer's Calling and the Apprentice out in case it hits the Doomsayer, which at best resets the board, but... And then perhaps Tom draws all bloods fast enough?
There must be a way.
There must be a way.
I'm sure someone's queuing up these voice lines for us.
Yeah.
I
don't see a way
don't even
Staz
know
survives
anymore.
without Conjurer's Calling the Apprentice and trying to find a Doomsayer.
So just to just to update your audience, just in case, there are no 10-drop taunts. The best you can do is Archmage, Big Bad Archmage, into summoning a 6-drop, which is a taunt. But that just does not cut the mustard right now. Is he going to go for the Hakar lethal?
Hakar can't
Oh no, because it doesn't keep cycling.
Right, it doesn't keep cycling. I'm not sure why this Conjurer's Calling happened. Even with double Mulch Muncher, it's not enough. I think Staz's only out was Conjurer's Calling the Apprentice and then trying to take the game from there. We'll see if Tom can navigate around this, but I don't even think there's not
is there
a secret.
anything to navigate around?
No.
Attack in. Oh,
Boop.
Seems good.
Boop.
No ice blocks anymore, friend. Hakar dealing the lethal blow, and Tom takes the victory over Staz, 2-1. Huge deal as well, because that means with his victory over Chonsu as well, he is 2-0 this weekend. So tick those boxes for the previous Hearthstone World Champion. He's getting off to a decent start, at least, moving on with these 2-0s and help him progress through the Hearthstone Grandmasters here. So that was a really, really crazy series, and you see it's probably one of the wackier mirror matches you get to watch. Let's check out the results from today and see what's been going on so far. So as we said, this is Super Sunday, so we have 6 matches for you. Shaxi 2-0 in glory, very convincing with this warrior. Alutimu took a win over Frosty with his mech hunter. Mage keeps doing it. But then Tyler again, warrior just proving its strength and favored, basically, its favors power over Mage right now, with Tyler taking 2 victories with his warrior.
Yeah, after that we had Flurry take on Shansu and managed to get a win with the Mage against the Druid, which was struggling to get a win even with the deck against the deck it's targeting. But finally Rivius was able to get Druid on the board against Surrender 2-1, and we just rounded out the day with tom60229 taking a 2-1 victory over Staz in the Mage Mirror. A couple of takeaways. We did see Mech Hunter struggle a lot against Mage lately. We've seen Druid struggle a lot against Mage lately, but Warrior seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, Warrior just I think because the game plan is so consistent and difficult for Mage to interact with. Like, Mage can't deal with a 3-3 on curve.
Yeah.
You can't deal with a 4-5 on curve either. You know, it's very, very difficult. And then by then the damage is kind of done. And the time it takes Mage to deal with the Warrior threats early, if that's what happens, it reduces them putting threats of their own on the board. And we had seen some, some maybe timid play, I would say, from Mages being a little bit too worried. Because one problem, especially once you move into games 2 or 3, as Mage versus Warrior, is the Warrior's definitely teched for Mage, right? We've seen every single week Warriors had BGHs, the Super Colliders, and additional Brawl is the most common build. And if that's the case, if your opponent's so tech so heavily, just play the stuff, right? Because the longer you wait, the more chance they've got of having those cards that beat you. Sometimes you get blown out by BGH, that's just the way it goes. And that's just maybe down to deck building as well. Some of these Mage players might need to go back to the drawing board in terms of how they decide they beat Warrior. Because I definitely agree, looking from this week, the key takeaways for me is that Warrior's still pretty good, even though it doesn't beat up on Rogue, because Rogue doesn't really exist much anymore. But big questions for me next week: is Mage still going to be as busy as we've seen it this time, or is Warrior, and then maybe because of that, Hunter also going to take over? Another takeaway that we didn't get to see today, because we saw him play yesterday and the day before, Blitzchung demolished his opponents as a mid-range hunter, the only mid-range hunter to appear this week in Asia Pacific. So huge weekend for him too. But now that has been it, week number 2 of the Hearthstone Grandmasters. Just want to thank Language Hacker for joining me. You are heading home tomorrow, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, mate. I appreciate you coming out, flying all the way out here to make sure I'm not alone on the casting desk.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've had a blast. It's been interesting to see stuff from this side of the desk, and I've got a lot of stuff to take away from this.
Yeah, 100%. I hope to see you back on this side of the desk, as well as on the playing desk. We hope to see you back in tournaments soon as well. But thanks a lot from everyone here for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show, and if you want some more Hearthstone, there's Europe coming straight up, and then America straight after that. Same old every weekend for us in the Hearthstone Grandmasters. Have a great night.